Let's go. You take care of yourself. While I was still in shock, the two beggars shook off their ragged clothes and stood up. Where are you going? To beg, of course. The Dead Sea is our home. Don't you want to be reincarnated? Why should we be reincarnated? Isn't being a ghost better? Exactly, being human is exhausting, full of scheming and infighting, harming each other without end. If you're reincarnated as a rich person, you worry about money. If as a poor person, you worry about food. There's never a moment of peace. Indeed, the most important thing is that no matter how many changes one undergoes in this world, tasting all the bitterness of human relationships and worldly affairs, in the end, one still has to become a ghost. So what's the point of trying? I felt as if I had awakened. Reflecting on half my life, when I was young, I was arrogant and self-satisfied, smarter than others but never lived well. In the latter half, I wandered everywhere, pitifully humble, and still didn't live well. Whether I was thriving or failing, I never truly understood life. If I had understood sooner, my grandfather wouldn't have died, and my wife and children wouldn't have been wiped out. In my youth, I relied on my grandfather's protection, sailing smoothly without knowing the dangers of the human world, unaware of the vastness of heaven and earth, causing immense disasters. After my grandfather sacrificed himself for me, I became so frightened that I lost all courage, and I was schemed against for years without realizing it. Perhaps this was also retribution? But my mistakes took my grandfather's life. Why didn't they let me go? I had turned my life around, washed my hands of my past ways. Why were they still forcing me back into the world of violence? I pulled out that book. Fortunately, the yellow paper that my grandfather had once laid over the dead man's face was still inside the book. All these years had passed, and this paper remained intact. I picked up the paper and sighed. I never expected this paper would accompany me across countless miles, just to take the lives of this entire village. The day after I squeezed the life out of Mrs. Kwong, my eldest son died on the construction site. From the moment I saw him off at the door, I knew he would not return. I wasn't sad. What good was sadness? As the two beggars said, being human is the hardest thing. I should be happy for the 6 of them. Let me bear the crimes and suffering of the world alone. Mrs. Kwon lay dead in the house for 3 days without anyone knowing. An old woman living alone, it's perfectly normal for her not to go outside for a few cold days. So, when a woman from the front yard came to borrow shoes and discovered Mrs. Kwon's body, no one suspected anything unusual. After all, she had reached her time to die. Moreover, this is the land of dual graves. When one person dies, 2 must follow, quite normal. Everyone thought this was a completely ordinary death event. No, 2 events. No one suspected that this was just the beginning of death. It wasn't my fault. It really wasn't my fault. I had once been grateful to them. I was once willing to work like an ox or a horse for them. Every time there was heavy or dirty work at the construction site, I volunteered to do it. But they deceived me. They used the lives of my whole family as experiments. Not only that, they also used despicable means to humiliate my wife. Especially Uncle Kwong, you see, the one I hate to the bone. So, I'm sorry, Uncle Kwong, I will start with you. My eldest son died on the construction site, considered a workplace accident. The village compensated with money and helped arrange the funeral. Kwon Yu-si and the villagers pretended to be busy, feigning compassion. It's a pity that Mrs. Kwon has died, otherwise, I could have enjoyed her fake mourning performance. For example, when my wife died, she sat on the ground, pounding her hands and crying out, "Poor child. How can you just leave like that? How could you be so cruel? What will become of your husband and children left behind?" At that time, her wailing twisted my insides with pain. Now she's dead too. But her funeral was cold and desolate. Everyone was busy at my house. Especially Kwon Yu-si, he seemed oddly eager. I was starting to get impatient too. In the end, my house was left with just me. That was what Kwon Yu-si wanted. I had to sacrifice my family's lives to break the curse of the land of dual graves. Afterward, the person who took over this house would enjoy wealth and prosperity. Ha ha! Then come. Come and enjoy. After burying my eldest son, I didn't go outside for a whole week. The villagers thought I had fallen ill. But no one came to visit me. They hoped I would die quickly, so this house could become a lucky one. But I wasn't ill at all. I felt invigorated, as if I had just received a stimulant. Day and night, I grappled with that book, following every step. I eagerly dug around the house. I dug a large pond right in the middle of the living room, then took the yellow paper that had been laid over the dead person's face, kneading the oil of the tongue for the blood to drip onto my little finger, and carefully wrote the names of my wife and children along with their dates of birth on the paper. Then, I took 6 sharp knives soaked in chicken blood, reversed the tips, and formed a circle on the ground. The yellow paper was laid flat, pierced through by the smell of all the knives, and then I set it on fire. Clearly, it was just a piece of paper, but it burned fiercely as if consuming an entire house, burning for a long time. I patiently waited for it to burn completely. When the knife tips turned red like blood, I began to cover it up. As I filled the earth back in, I hesitated for a moment. Because by covering it up, it meant that my wife and children would never be reincarnated as humans again. They could not live freely like those 2 beggars, but must follow my arrangement, forever becoming the ghosts that carry coffins. Until this village is destroyed. There was no other choice. Without sacrifice, one cannot achieve their goals. If I wanted revenge, there was no other option. That night, after covering the earth, I dreamt of my wife. She sat crying bitterly before my bed. I have never wronged you. Why do you treat me and our children like this? I just want to live peacefully here. I don't want to wander like before. I laughed coldly. As long as there is betrayal, don't look for reasons. She wasn't innocent either. Don't do something immoral like that. You've already made one mistake. If you make another, there will be no turning back. Ha! I'm immoral. They are the immoral ones. I'm just exploiting their immorality. So what if there's no turning back forever? Can I still become a ghost? If so, let it all turn to smoke. What's there to fear? No one could change my mind. After finishing everything, I wearily went outside to find Kwon. You see, Uncle Kwon, I want to go back to my hometown. Could you see if anyone wants this house? I want to sell it to easily get money for the journey. Kwon you see didn't hesitate to play the role of a benefactor, accepting my house without bargaining. Of course, I didn't ask for a high price. A house as unlucky as this one, I had to try to act a little. After getting the money, that night I left this village. At this point, I had 4 family members, and now I was left all alone. So why should I show mercy and forgive this cruel village? I traveled about 100 miles, found a place to rest, and looked for a beggar. I gave him some money, then led him back to this village. Of course, I didn't enter the village. I just told the beggar to pretend to be a feng shui master. Taking advantage of the time when Kwon Yu-see's eldest son was inspecting the newly purchased house, he flattered them to gain their trust, taking control of the design and renovation of Kwon's new house. Under my command, he transformed the new house into a temple. Everything was going according to my plan. Before the new house was completed, Kwon Yu-see fell ill with cancer. This book truly is miraculous. But that beggar was too foolish. I was worried he would reveal everything, so I had to find another young man to continue the act. However, I feared he might be too young for anyone to believe, and after much thought, I decided I had to step forward myself. There was no other choice. I took advantage of the time before Kwon Yu-see died to diligently practice shape-shifting. Just as I was finishing my shape-shifting training, Kwon Yu-see passed away. I instructed that young man to act in my name as my disciple to preside over Kwon Yu-see's funeral. But I still felt a bit anxious. Even though Kwon Yu-see had, according to plan, developed cancer, I was still uncertain whether the coffin of Kwon Yu-see could be lifted by 6 ghosts. My entire life had been a journey of groping through darkness. Just like when I carved a small figure before, it was just a playful mindset. Who would have thought it would lead to such a catastrophe? This time, I was serious enough to sacrifice my entire family, but whether it would succeed or not, I still wasn't certain. When the young man called me to say the coffin wouldn't go down, I was instantly overjoyed. All right. The land of Songkwan had finally been refined into the land for hanging coffins. When I donned an elderly disguise with an immortal-like demeanor, adopting the name Old Foam, and arrived at the scene, the Kwon family and the villagers indeed did not recognize me. They treated me with great respect, expressing their hopes that I could facilitate the burial of Kwon Yusi's coffin. This scene reminded me of when I first arrived in this village. I too had treated them with reverence, hoping to find a place for myself here. But they had regarded my family as sacrificial offerings. Seeing them appear worried and fearful, I frowned. The land for hanging coffins is very unlucky. Everyone panicked. What does that mean? The land of Songkwan means one dies, two must follow, and the land for hanging coffins is for hanging the coffin while waiting for a companion. No one knows how long one must wait. The coffin can only go down when the required number is met. How can that be? My father devoted his life to good deeds. How could this happen? Surely your disciple miscalculated the burial time or location, leading to such a serious consequence. I won't accept this. You must find a way to help us resolve it. Ha, truly a group of rogues. Their rebuttal skills are impressive. I changed the subject. Has anyone been watching over the Kwon family's new house recently? Old Kwon stepped forward. I have. He was the one I needed. I walked around Old Kwon's new house, slowly unveiling their conspiracy. This village is built on the land of Songkwan, and beneath this house are two graves. To break the curse of the land of Songkwan, a new house must be built over the two graves. If one can build safely, the curse will be broken. If not, then the family that builds will face destruction. However, with this family sacrificing themselves to block the curse, this house has transformed from unlucky to lucky. If they continue to build on it, they will rise in status and wealth. This was what Kwon Yusi's wife, Aunt Kwon, had told me. The first family to live here, if not stopped, will face destruction. When only one person is left alive, they will drive them away, and then rebuild this house, larger and taller, ensuring wealth because the previous curse has been resolved by our family, leaving only auspicious signs. Therefore, from the first day my husband allowed the Chu family to live here, he had intentions for this house. The idea of 4 floors and 4 rooms was that of the feng shui master my eldest son found, stating that it could advance further, possibly bringing high-ranking officials into the house in the future. Listening to her, I felt pain as if my flesh were being cut. Although the 2 beggars had revealed this to me before, hearing it from Aunt Kwon made me feel utterly crushed. After hearing it repeatedly, I felt that even if I wiped out this village, it wouldn't quell my anger. I had to pay special attention to this Kwon family, only then could I not betray their conspiracy. I took a deep breath and deliberately said to Aunt Kwon, "Is the Chu woman extremely beautiful?" Yes, many young men in the village gaze at her in awe. Of the 3 children born to the Chu woman, one of them is your husband's child. My child? Yes, precisely your husband's. Oh. I see. Ha. My husband said that a child must be left in the Chu family, so that the future wealth and honor of the Chu family can certainly fall into our hands. That child is the connection of my husband. Ha. Truly a woman with a vicious heart. A woman who is both cruel and foolish. If I did nothing to her, wouldn't that be a waste of her foolishness? So, I sighed, sister, this situation with the hanging coffin can be broken, but it's quite difficult. You all can't do it. Aunt Kwon quickly asked, do you have any plans? As long as it's not about plucking stars from the sky, I will try my best. It doesn't require plucking stars from the sky, but it's not easy either. First, this village is uncursed land. Second, the reason for the hanging coffin primarily lies in the new house. Therefore, if someone dies in the new house, it will both satisfy the curse of the land and break the cause of the new house. Your family will have someone to accompany them on their way to the underworld, and they will naturally rest in peace. That person must be. I paused deliberately, creating suspense and not continuing. What must be done? Aunt Kwon was anxious and restless. The following words may seem a bit rude, but I must say, that person must be a member of your family. If someone else dies in your new house, it won't be of any help. Furthermore, that person must wear a red coffin robe, only then can this predicament be broken. Otherwise, your husband will not wait and will choose one of his descendants to take action. Aunt Kwon's face turned pale, muttering, the son that my husband loves the most is Tam Ni. Tamni is in Shenzhen running a large company. He is the richest in our family. He absolutely cannot meet with misfortune. I remained silent. Aunt Kwon was now in a panic. Master, can I accompany you for a while? I have been married to him for many years. Although we can't say we were affectionate, we've been through so much together. I am also getting older, and if I can help my descendants avoid this calamity, it can be considered a good deed. But I don't have a red coffin. I pondered for a moment. To save a person is to save them thoroughly, to send the Buddha to the West, sister. This is very wise. I will think of a way to get a red coffin. Thus, I invited Aunt Kwon to the new house of the eldest son and hung her up in the living room. Before she died, I revealed my true face. Aunt, do you recognize who I am? She widened her eyes. Your old Chu. We haven't treated you badly. Why are you? Yes, you haven't treated me badly at all, letting my entire family die, while you all profited behind the scenes. If I don't repay this, how can I be worthy of Uncle Kwon's good intentions? Aunt Kwon, dressed in a red coffin, hung above the living room. That was the direction where I had buried the sharp knives. From now on, the Kwon family would be at the forefront of the hanging coffin predicament, and subsequently, the entire village would be affected. I told Aunt Kwon that not only did her family live in the village, but also her descendants working hard outside, including Tamni, the one she loved the most, would not escape. You all owe me. I will definitely reclaim everything. I watched the pieces of fear gradually come together to form a dark picture. The horrified screams echoed in the air, mingling with the tears of the survivors, and I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of satisfaction. They had created this storm, and now they had to face the whirlwind they had unleashed. When Kwon Lao Tam fled, I could only smile. No one could escape the fate that had been set. I had ignited this panic, and now everyone had become pawns on the chessboard I had arranged. His death was just the beginning. The coffins would keep coming until this village became a graveyard. I had hung Aunt Kwon from the beam, but now, I felt as if I was hanging the entire village in the palm of my hand. Those who had once looked down on me now had to regard me with fear-filled eyes. They were mistaken to think they could have the upper hand. I won't stop here, I told myself. There will be even more horrifying things to come. Even though my conscience urged me, I had gone too deep into this swamp of hatred to turn back. While I might never receive forgiveness, I no longer desired it. A chilling fear began to spread throughout the village, as if the air around was becoming heavier. Everyone felt that death lurked everywhere, and the wait for a tragic ending was inevitable. In my heart, a question flickered: could it be that the wicked would never find peace? I will make them pay, I whispered in the darkness, as the dim stars twinkled in the sky. The next plans had been mapped out in my mind, and I would not allow anyone to obstruct my path of revenge. And so, I waited, silently observing every move of the Kwon family and the villagers, like a ghost, waiting for the opportunity to strike next. Because in this world, the strong would always prevail over the weak, and I had become the strong, not just by power, but by cunning and determination. Epilogue. In the end, this village was wiped out by a plague, leaving not a single rat behind. As for me, I wondered how the heavens would punish me. I committed evil but also punished evil. I didn't consider myself a villain with heinous crimes, yet I couldn't say I was a good person either. Although my deeds of merit and guilt couldn't offset each other, it wasn't enough to condemn me to the depths of hell. King Yama was at his wit's end, racking his brain, and ultimately decided to allow me to reincarnate as a human, because in his eyes, there was nothing more painful than being human. He let me live a life of failure, indulging in whatever I desired, unable to find love or marry, leading a miserable existence, reduced to a life worse than death, weeping silently. There was no punishment harsher than this. I truly no longer wanted to live. In my previous life, I killed and set fires, and in this life, I had to become a failure. End.